Unpeeled, thanks to 3dprint.com. And today we're talking about, well, first off, Bamboo Lab. So the Bamboo Lab company, which has made some really groundbreaking 3D printers, basically kind of everything but the kitchen sink kind of 3D printer, which is relatively affordable for about $1,000, but it has like lidar on it and kind of advanced cameras and slicing, and works and is a really quick, very accurate, reliable printer for the price. It's really shaking things up. People now are in kind of the Bamboo Lab skeptics camp and the Bamboo Lab fans camp at the moment. But I think we can all agree that definitely it's given the 3D printing industry a new impulse. Everybody's kind of making a little bit better $200 printers, or trying to make $5,000 printers that were a lot of features, and now all of a sudden a lot of people become a lot more ambitious. And one of the things people have become a lot more ambitious about is software. There was a time when most of the desktop material extrusion companies used Cura. Then Prusa and others started to come up with their own kind of flavors based on Cura. And now Bamboo Labs is saying, no, we're going to come up with MakerWorld. That's our very own kind of thingiverse, kind of downloadables kind of site, just like Prusa's come up with printables and stuff like that. So it's going to be a kind of a controlled experience thingiverse. There's going to be slice profiles, filament parameters, print settings. There's also going to be some room for attribution, which I always think is a problem. So I think that's kind of wonderful to have this. And it's all integrated with Bamboo Studio. Now, we're not entirely sure this is going to be open to other people. Can you get a model out of this if you use a Prusa or something like that? Considering how Bamboo Lab operates and the kind of thing they want, I'm thinking it's going to be primarily, if not exclusively, something for Bamboo Studio and their slicing software, and also Bamboo Labs printer thing. So they're not trying to make it like a digital source for all files in the world, more kind of something that makes the Bamboo Labs ecosystem more valuable for those inside of it, let's say. They're also doing something that is called MakerWorld, where they hope to give you kind of points for kind of interaction, so improving models, designing things, photographing, that kind of thing. Not sure that's going to work, because if people really start like equating these things with awards, gamifying it, often the real power, not the power users per se, but the power helpers, those people that like, sue that takes hundreds of hours to design something really groundbreaking, are really going to feel they're getting a little bit shortchanged, because they're, per hour they're getting paid like $1 per hour or something like this. But it may kind of engage a lot of people across the community. Maybe if they do it correctly, they may get a high degree of involvement. They hope to get these Maker Award points, by the way, to give people access to models, unique models, sought after filaments, and even maybe printers. The idea here is, I clearly think they're working on a path to maybe monetizing this, or offering models for download, or having some kind of Patreon type model where you support certain creators, something like that. It seems like that they're trying to monetize this in that way. So this is a really important thing to happen to the 3D printing industry, because now if they do a good job of this, Creality has to do this as well. And Creality indeed is coming up with something similar. And Anet has to do it as well. And then all of a sudden, these hardware companies are now also software companies. Some of them may not be very good at this. I remember at one point, I was always a big fan of Saudi products. And at one point, a long time ago, bought an MP3 player from Sony, and the software was horrendous. It would crash, and it would crash every single time. And it was the MP3 player. The hardware was really good, but as a software hardware interaction, just putting music on this thing would always crash. It would take hours. It was just terrible. And so that same thing may happen to some of these companies that are really good at the hardware, but just can't make the transition to the software. And it's also kind of it would be a great time for a MakerBot, Cura kind of company to exist, or Simplify 3D, or Materialize, or somebody to offer kind of a white label slicing slash thingiverse slash online experience type of solution to these companies. So those companies can just focus on their hardware, and they can just white label a solution that would really work from Materializer, similar player, Autodesk even. That I think would be something really powerful for the market. Otherwise, a lot of guys might get left in the dust. Maybe the hardware is good enough, but their software skills aren't just not up to it, or they just don't know how to manage like a software arm or software company. On top of this, does this not mean we're at one point going to see not one thingiverse for the whole market? Of course, Stratus has kind of orphaned this and put like one or two people on maintenance mode for years, and it was horrible, right? And this is a really disservice. It could have been the YouTube of 3D printing, and instead, it was the YouTube of 3D printing, but instead, it kind of got orphaned for years. Now, I guess they're doing some good stuff with it, but yeah, has that moment passed? Are we not going to have one big YouTube where we get all the models in the world? Or is now going to have this balkanization where different models are all over the place? That would not be very optimal. Is it going to be that I can only download models if I have a Bamboo Labs printer? So all that creativity is only going to be for the Bamboo Labs kind of walled garden. That's kind of stuff we have to think about, and that's kind of sad. It would be better, whatever you think of Thingiverse, it would be better to have one place where all the models are on, or at least a couple. So that's some things we need to think about, and that's why this is an important announcement. Okay, the next thing is from 3DM. 3DM is an Israeli company. You may have missed them. They did some press release. They made some things. The technology sounds quite interesting, but they haven't really got that much traction. And now they've told the world they need strategic partners. It seems to be that they really, really, really need these strategic partners. They're kind of like reading between the lines. It's smarter. A lot of companies kind of are having trouble and they don't tell anybody about it. These guys are literally saying, "Hey, look, guys, work with us." So these guys have a kind of powder bed fusion printhead technology, essentially. It's a parallelized laser beam that's based on a semiconductor laser these guys developed specifically for 3D printing. Their idea was, compared to the conventional optics that were made for 3D printing, this is a much faster, high throughput solution for true manufacturing. So they're looking for strategic partners. Does this mean that they don't have any money and they're going to run out of it, that this is much too costly and much too kind of groundbreaking investment? Or does it mean that somebody's going to read this and then all of a sudden work with these guys, and all of a sudden we're going to see a new generation machine from somebody that will change and will really implement their technology at scale? What we've seen is that so far, Aerosint and other companies that are they're counting on doing these breakthrough technologies, that are focusing on only doing that technology bit, only the printhead. We're saying in material extrusion, E3D offers an aftermarket printhead that you can install essentially with a screwdriver, and that's successful. But on all these other markets where you really have to get buy-in from these machine manufacturers, you really have to work with them, and they really have to commit to you for a long time. We're seeing that it's a very tough road ahead for these guys to do that and to go through that whole long kind of negotiation with this company where there's no mutual dependency, right? The company kind of says, like, you need me. I've invented my own thing that is different than your thing, right? So it's a very difficult business model to make work, and it's really up to whatever business development person you have. She really has to do a great job, and then that you can be successful with this. Otherwise, it becomes very, very difficult. The next news is from the Theken Companies. This is a kind of a family-owned or owned by one person kind of group of medical device companies. Started out by a company offering like FDA services and engineering services for orthopedic implant manufacturers. A bunch of these companies were sold, and the owner is now investing in a new generation of 3D printing companies or medical device companies, including with the heavy kind of influence of 3D printing in there. One of these is called VisionAir Solutions. This is a really interesting thing because we saw a whole bunch of people working on this. This VisionAir Solutions was a spin out from the Cleveland Clinic, very prestigious hospital, of course. It was made by Tom Gildea. It was a doctor there, and it was a personalized airway stent. So very similar. It's kind of like the easiest way to explain this is it's Invisalign for stents, right? So essentially, you're a pulmonologist. You want to make an airway stent. What you do is you upload the CT scan to the software. This design platform lets you kind of like plan the stent. Then somewhere else, the model is printed. The positive printed. This is then cast in silicone. What happens is you have a perfectly positioned, perfectly flexible airway stent that is personalized, so that you can implant in the patient. Hopefully, will give you a better result. They got approval for this, and now the next step is, of course, on this larger Theken company to implement this. There's been a ton of work being done on airway stent and any kind of trachea, upper anatomy type of stuff right now. So it's nice to see this stuff move, and it's also kind of cognizant of the fact that we know that something like this is going to be hugely successful. And we could see these silicon 3D printed, either directly 3D printed or indirectly 3D printed, these kind of doohickeys, whether in the stent, airways, or lots of other applications, are going to be really, really big. So it's a question of time, really, and a question of further development, and tens of millions of dollars to see this really come to fruition. So, yeah, it's a good development. I think that somebody's willing to take this further, take this to the next level. And Teken's really interesting because they do have a lot of experience with 3D printing relatively to the company size, and they could really kind of take these kind of very newish technologies that do have maybe some FDA approvals and really commercialize them. So that could be good for all of us. So anyway, thank you very much for your time today. My name is Ross Peels. This is 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Thanks to 3dprint.com. You have a great day.